sharing motivational experiences from the everyday entrepreneur. Tune in Women Empowerment Talk Radio every Sunday, 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio World.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
Generational wealth to me means to provide and establish wealth for generations to come, whether it be through real estate or through other equitable funding.
Personally, it helps to work with a trusted financial professional to guide and steer you, because you're going to making some decisions around how you spend your money, how you save your money, how you invest your money. Some of that will be strictly to increase the size of your wealth. Other parts of those investments might be something that you want to do that keep your purpose and your character. And you can manage to do both.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio World.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World. Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio World, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Juan Cotto touching bases with you live from the shores of Lake Washington with my good friend and my compadre on Tuesday afternoons. This is Mr. Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Mick, how you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing very well, thank you very much. Enjoying a beautiful day today here in the city of Seattle, and looking forward to catching up with you. And a lot of activities happening in Washington State sports right now, and looking forward to connect with you on that. I know we've got the basketball season's ending, and we're heading into the playoffs, February Madness. I know we've got a big wrestling tournament coming up, and things you're going to have to be dealing with. It's always exciting to be coming up on the end of the second season of sports in Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hectic, busy time, but it's a very exciting time. I mean, competition, we're starting bowling this week. We had cheer a couple weeks ago, so we've been hard at it. In the next 4 weeks, we're going to be hosting lots of games in a lot of places. So it's really one of the best times of the year.
And that always puts a little bit of stress on your team, but that the team that you have in Renton is very talented, very organized, and they're able to get these things organized and handle all of these different activities in a extremely efficient manner.
Yeah, I mean, a couple weekends ago, we had a board meeting all day Sunday online. We had the legislative meeting that came off of finishing up a state tournament cheerleading with about 5,000 people in the gym to finish up on Saturday night. So get done about 11 o'clock that night down south, and get online the next day. And then we're turned around running a legislative meeting and get ready for a bunch of state tournaments. So yeah, staff at this time of year, it's incredible how hard they work. And I mean, President's Day is a big holiday, and honestly, we had to take it as a floater because that week we have 3 tournaments kicking off, and we just have to be in the office getting details and stuff ready to go. So, yeah, they definitely earn their keep this time of year. So by the time we hit mid-March and get to that dance championship at the end of March, people are pretty well spent.
Also another organization that puts on a lot of stuff here in the month of February, Rainier Avenue Radio, and we have the Call to Conscience Black History Museum. This is day number 4, I believe. It is down at 4916 Rainier Avenue South, where Mick and I usually are, but by our schedules, Mick, we've been on the move lately, driving back and forth and going different places and meeting with all these different folks. But over at 4916 Rainier Avenue South, and it is certainly a wonderful venue. Tony B really does do an incredible job of putting this together for us. He's got a number of incredible exhibits available, from Seattle's Black Panther Party all the way to the Black Firefighters Association. They've been in the news quite a bit recently with the ability to get their building back, and I know that that's been something that's been well documented. Common down to the Columbia City, what was formerly the Columbia City Theater. This is going to be your opportunity to see it. And as I said before, in the last couple of years, it really does. This is something to bring your children to. This is something to come enjoy as a family. Plenty of businesses down there that are serving incredible different styles of food, and you may want to make an afternoon of it. It really is a well-run program. So the Call to Conscience Black History Month Museum, February 1st to the 28th, and I see Tony B is going to promote Black history as he always does, and that is an important thing to all of our communities, and especially here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world. Vision and priorities. You touched a little about the strategic areas going on in the month of February. We know that the WIAA is much more going on than that, and looking at some different things that we can touch on to broaden the conversation. And we'll also bring up a couple of things that some viewers ask me about, or some listeners ask me about. But Mick, talk about what your top strategic priorities are. And I sent you the questions in regards to for the coming years, and I want you to be able to reference it from a position of, I mean, I don't expect you to go 20 years down the road, but the next, let's say the next 3 to 5 years, as you're putting together your strategic priorities for athletics in the state of Washington. And we realize, and you and I have had these conversations now for more than 2.5 years, it's an ongoing and changing landscape. The demands of coaches, the demands of administrators, the demands of players and teachers. How do you envision Washington State athletics evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's a great question. Before we jump in, I just want to, I was looking at the lineup of what Tony B has lined up for Call to Conscience, and a bunch of our staff went last year, and I'm looking and seeing quite a few new additions to that. So it's pretty remarkable. Our staff went, the folks who went, when we came back, we shared out at a staff meeting, and we have repeaters this year and others that want to go. So we're actually doing it as a staff outing, and I would encourage anybody that's listening to consider the same. One, we were blessed to have Tony B with us when we did it, and just the wealth of knowledge he has and how he shares it is entertaining in itself, very educational. But it's a great event. So anyway, shout out to Tony and his team for putting that together. As far as vision of what we're talking about, we have a strategic plan. We do all the formal stuff. I think the biggest thing is just that, there's such a push for people to want what they want when they want it right now. And that equates to almost everything that we stand for being challenged, from people wanting to be able to go play wherever they want, when they want, change during the season if they get mad at a coach, people not wanting to pay to go in and watch, people, stand up and down and acting a fool at a game towards officials or even coaches or game. I mean, we have legislation right now going through in Olympia that would make it a crime to not just physically accost, but verbally accost officials and game workers, the athletic directors and ticket takers and people who are really giving their time to provide opportunities for kids. So I would say the biggest thing that we're going to see a change, we're going to do everything we can right now to change people's behavior and expectations when they go there. $5 or $6 does not give them a license to do and say what they want. So, there's great competition. It's a lot of fun. Kids play hard, but they also don't want utter chaos on the floor in the stands or taking away the attention from them. So that's one of them. The other piece is that we're seeing more, a movement of students, more of these small kind of boutique choice schools pop up, independent schools. And so with that, there's a lot of them that are built around either a doctrine or a general belief. And I think we'll continue to see more small schools than big schools throughout our state. And, one of the best teams in the state right now, Annie Wright, is a 1A school. And So we're seeing, kids move, that it's not all about the biggest is the best. And so I think that's another thing we'll see. And then the third big nugget that's out there is the funding of these public schools. I mean, we have 31 schools right now on a watch list from OSPI not being able to pay their bills. And so that has to get right in schools and communities to be able to continue to fund this opportunity for all kids, right? We talk all the time. The best and the wealthiest always will have a place to play. Somebody will make that happen. Too big of a business. But it's all the rest of the other, hundreds of thousands of students that this is just a great experience to extend their education. So, we're pushing to try to help schools with funding that way, and then schools do their business. So those are really the kind of the big issues: the behavior, the movement of students, and the ability for schools to pay their bills.
How share with me how what is the responsibility of the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, OSPI, and it seems like they're stretched as well. Do they have a role to support athletics, or does that mostly come from the district level?
Yeah, it's really the district level. There's no state funding per se for any type of extended day, including the arts and all that. I mean, there's sometimes it's an extension of the classroom. They can do that, but sports definitely are not considered an extension of the classroom. So that comes from local levies. So when people, there's a bunch of them on the out there right now up for vote around the state, and your levy dollars provide a place for students to go. Students need to be somewhere. I'd prefer them in healthy activities with trusted adults than just kind of finding their own way. So, and all the lessons we've talked about that a bunch. There's a ton of research on the value. So,
let me ask you this question: you see the NC2A, and you see these local colleges and universities here in our area. Obviously, the University of Washington, and we're hearing these unbelievable numbers, Mick, about what it's taking to keep players at the University of Washington football team. They've set up these different programs, and they've set up the Mount Lake Futures to support athletes there. And here we are at the high school level. Has there been a conversation about looking at different ways we can have corporate activity support some of our high school students, or it just you guys have to work and with the districts to find support at a much smaller level?
Yeah, I mean, corporations can come in and help support the school's general funds to provide funding for that. They can do it through the student body fund. They can do it through the general fund. So having sponsors, that's I think what will be interesting over the next few years is, especially on the public side, schools have never really thought of themselves as revenue generators, right? It's get money from the state, get money from local taxes, and then when money's tight, find ways to cut expenses. And just like what we're finding with our state tournaments, you get 10% inflation a year in the Seattle area. That's 10% on a $300,000 rental in Tacoma. That's $30,000 more dollars. Mm-hmm. Well, that's you got to get 3,000 more tickets sold to do that, and attendance isn't going up by that much. So no different than us. So we have to go out and try to generate revenue. That's what we do with our streaming and corporate sponsors. And I think we'll start seeing public schools maybe do a little bit more of that, just out of possible for survival. So yeah, there's a lot of ways of doing it, and the NCAA is different because that money's going to kids directly for compensation for their talent, and we don't have that at least to that level yet in high school sports. And so it's more funding that C squad team, that extra team that you want, or the team that maybe might go 2-14 in volleyball, but you want to give those girls a chance to compete like anybody else. So I think we could see that, somebody paying to send them to a tournament, what have you. Sure.
Mick, I tell you, there is more access to viewing games now. And you and I've talked about this over the last couple of years. I think there's much more better access. I tell you, I can turn on the NFHS network. I can go to the YouTube channels for a variety of different schools, and you can get the most clear, high-quality broadcasts, some of them with young people calling the games. Some of them just have an open television camera, the exposure that high school sports is getting in Washington State, and you're able to see all the top players that you've been able to read about in the newspaper, and you can do this in a 2-hour period. It's as I'm getting a little bit older, it's nice not to have to drive to gym, and some of the weather here recently has been a little cold in the Seattle area. It's been nice to just throw on the TV set and watch 2 games on a Friday night and on a Thursday. And to see the great players in the state of Washington, both at the male and female level. I'm a big basketball fan and have been able to see those games. But it just seems like the exposure to high school sports has gotten much better, and that must be a thrill in you guys' world.
Yeah, last year was our highest in-person attendance in 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and we also had by far our highest streaming numbers of people watching online. And, we make some money off of that. So some schools still provide that for free for their community because they believe, people are supporting them through their levies, they're paying other ways. Some schools are going through the subscription method. But I think we're working with the University of Washington right now, Foster School of Business, and they're doing an evaluation of the streaming impact butts and seats. And right now, it doesn't appear so from all their preliminary research. They still have more to do this spring. Our belief in the NFHS can provide these heat maps, and 75% of the people are coming over 25 miles away. The 25 miles doesn't seem very far, but if your O'Day team's playing a basketball game on a Wednesday night and they're out at Central Kitsap, getting there for that 6 o'clock game is kind of tough. And so you may not stay as connected to your team by, you're not going to make that drive unless you're a really dedicated fan or parent. But now if you can stay home and watch it, you stay connected to that team. Now all of a sudden you find out, hey, they're actually playing, in town. Oh, I'm going to go to that game. And we believe that's what happens is fans can stay connected. Plus grandma can watch from Iowa, right? Mm-hmm. Or Detroit or wherever she's at. So they can watch. I mean, my grandparents, I remember the one game they came to. They were a North Dakota family. I came out to warm up a basketball game. I looked up stands, about fell down. My grandparents were there. That was the only game in my life that my grandparents ever saw me play. And I played everything as a kid growing up. And so that it was that meaningful to me that I remember where we're at, where they're sitting. I don't remember the game so well. We must have lost, but that they made the trip. Now they can do that every single night for like $15 a month. I mean, you think about that. That's incredible. So, yeah, I think it's a great service for our families. And, kids love being seen and supported by the people who love them. So
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And it's always special, Mick, when your grandparents come to see you play a sport. And that had to be one of the thrills of your life. And we talk about sports being a thrill for all of the students' lives in Washington State on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio hosting the Call to Conscious Black History Month Museum. That is going to be going Tuesdays through Sundays this month, 11 a.m. to 7. And Tony always turns things up. Usually it's 7 to 11, but this is 11 to 7. So remember that. Tuesdays and all the way through the rest of the week. It's a really, really good exhibit. Please bring your family. And obviously, we are definitely going to hype this up. We obviously believe in looking at African-American history as a way to support our community and to learn more about how the Seattle area has been able to evolve and change and grow with its Black community. And certainly this is a way to do that. He's got the history of the firefighters, the Black Panthers, a number of other exhibits, and he does it in a way that is extremely fun and easy and compelling. And with the developments down there in Rainier Avenue, off of those little areas around what was known as the Columbia City Theater, there's some wonderful restaurants there. Come bring your family and enjoy the day at your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick, the safety and well-being of our athletes is something that is talked about. We know that especially coming out of the football season, going into the fall, there's no stopping injuries, and we know that athletes are competing at 110% of their capability. What are we doing, and what are the initiatives that the WIAA has implemented to safeguard and make sure that our athletes, and a lot of them are now playing one sport, but we also know there's still a few of them out there that are playing multiple sports. What are we doing to protect our athletes and making sure that they are able to take care of their bodies during the school academic seasons?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we do is we have required coaches ed, and it's around medical and training. And so, all coaches are required to have basic CPR first aid. So that, they can be first responders to an injury. We also were the first state that had the concussion law, the Lystead law, thank God the young man's still alive and thriving, but had a very difficult experience, and it's just become part of our day-to-day business. So those are a few key ones. We just are in the midst of working through a grant with the NFHS to provide more AEDs out to our schools. So we're also searching for funding sources to provide life-saving tools that are available. Justin Kesterson in our office did a phenomenal job of putting together an EAP, emergency action plan template. State law requires it by schools, so it's a have to, but what we want to do is make sure that schools had a jump start on it. So we have that, and then we develop those for each one of our sites. So when our schools are there, the other piece is we have pregame meetings. One of our expectations is with the coaches and game management and officials talk about, hey, if something goes down here, whether medical emergency or other some situation of violence, what are we going to do? So, and then, we get asked a lot about things going on. There's legislation right now down in Olympia that we've talked about already about creating penalties for people who cross the line. So, we have some parents right now that are trespassed from state events for their behavior last year. We're probably the best thing we can do is kind of set the tone for the state on, like, look, we ask you to manage your crowds, expected behavior, and support them when they got to deal with some unfortunate situations. And people can earn their way back, but you cross the line, there's accountability that has to be addressed first and foremost.
And a real basic question out of curiosity, what types of things would get you crossing that line?
Cussing and swearing at officials, coaches, players, any form of violence that's there, being uncooperative with staff. State events have to be streamed on NFHS network. People want to pop up their phones or their recorders and live stream to, where they deem it's appropriate, not cooperating. So, basically come enjoy the game, cheer people on. When you're unhappy, take a walk, go buy a Coke. But if you're disrupting the event for other people through your behavior, then it's just not the right place for you. You're not ready to be there yet. So you can go watch it online. We'll let you still stream it. Like, you got access. So you still watch your kid play if it's a parent or a general fan.
And what is the psychology of that, or has the WIAA, have you guys looked into that? I mean, are fans themselves placing them into a situation where they believe that they're rooting for the Seahawks or for the Mariners, or, heaven help you if you root for the Mariners. But it just seems like Kevin Martinez and the guys over there, sorry, I had to take a little shot at that. No, it's going to be, the hope of spring is eternal, right? But it just seems to me that, at games that I've been to at a variety of different levels, the fans are acting like fans of professional sporting events. Yeah. And I just sometimes, when people are like, why are you so calm? And I'm like, because they're kids. That's why I'm calm. If when I'm betting on the Seahawks, I act differently, right? What do we think is the expectation? Or is it the investment that parents are making? Excuse me. Is the investment that parents are making into the time their kids are participating in select sports?
Yeah, I mean, it's more speculation, but I think a big part of it for parents is a lot of people are using all their disposable income to fund their kids' youth sports. Yeah. And so there's a lot of stress and pressure that they feel and their kids feel to deliver on that. And they think, chasing that 1.3% scholarship is easy because they've invested in it or they've been promised. So I think part of it's that. I think part of it's just parents in nature. I mean, we're all protective of our kids. I mean, that's That's part of being a parent. And so I think competition for some people is just too much. Watching their kid fail, sometimes just seeing their kid in pain or suffer emotionally can be hard. And, some people just think they know more, and some people just want a lot of attention. I mean, there's some pretty prominent fans that I see around the state, people who had really successful careers that I watch the way they act in the stands at a high school game. I'm thinking, wow, I've watched these people on TV, and now I'm seeing this in a gym, like, interesting. So I don't know. I don't know why people would do that. I watch my kids, man, it was frustrating at times, right? Because you're mad at them, you're mad at the world. So I just have to go stand by myself somewhere I could mutter and do my thing, because I knew I was going to mutter it. So I just didn't want anybody to hear me. And I'm not going to be yelling at officials and doing that, because it's not going to change it anyway. And now all I'm doing is detracting from my kids' game, which I'm actually overly invested in at the time anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a combination. It's a little different for everybody. So,
and obviously, Mick, I am the government affairs director for Bloodworks Northwest. Spent a lot of time down in Olympia. This is one of the things that we always wondered when I was coaching, and I'm sure when you were coaching as well. Is there going to be a time where the legislature has to take a look at this and maybe impose rules on this in regards to parents and in terms of protecting not only the players themselves, but also the coaches and administrators who are trying to protect our sports?
I think we're seeing the start of it right now in this session. I mean, that bill is for volunteers or paid volunteers, essentially, that work at youth contests. So it's officials primarily is where it started, but it's also for the other people who have to deal with crowd management and the crowd in general. I mean, I walk into games a lot, and I'm amazed at how people will talk to a ticket taker. Here's somebody, a lot of times we get women or kids doing it because that's something that, the office staff, but we'll get men working there too. But, predominantly it's somebody who's sitting there just trying to be helpful, just making sure a kid's game gets to be played, trying to collect the money to help cover the bills. So that they can continue to fund it. Somebody's screaming at them because they have to do an electronic payment or use their credit card, or they don't think they should have to pay because they're already paying taxes. And I'm thinking, how miserable are people to go around yelling at somebody who's there really just trying to help, that's making less than minimum wage, maybe a complete volunteer. I don't get it. So, yeah, I think we're starting to see the start of that. People are tired of it. I mean, people are tired of it. Schools are getting in. I mean, they're hard to get people to come work. We have people having a hard time working at our stuff and at state events. And so I can imagine the daily grind in a school where there's, less supervision, and that they're taking it even harder. So, yeah, I think we're seeing it. And I think my guess is it'll expand over time if behavior doesn't change. So as an administrator, when you did student discipline, right, the goal of the discipline was to change the behavior. So help them understand, give them some other options. And if that doesn't work, you just find the pain threshold that changes that behavior, right? I mean, is it grounding? Is it punishment? What is it like? What's it take to change the behavior? And I think we're starting to see that in Olympia right now because of some of the assaults that have taken place at some contests.
Well, this is always a good little segue, so we can come back. He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, and we are on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We're going to take a 3-minute break, and when we come back, we'll follow up on some of these topics on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Seattle's dog.
So my doctor told me to go online to check my test results, but I didn't know how to do that. Thankfully, I could turn to Link to Care WA for help. With Link to Care WA, I was able to learn how to use online health portals, use telehealth to talk to my doctor virtually, and manage my prescriptions online. I called the hotline and spoke to a real person who taught me the skills I needed. Call Link to Care WA at 866-757-1832 or visit linktocarewa.org.
1, 2, get down.
What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Maraire, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio World, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Petro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio World.
What's going on, world? It's your boy OG Mambo
and your guy D Money. Join us along with Pint Size Patron and ID Yourself
here on Fresh Juice at Rainier Avenue Radio
every Wednesday hump day from 9 to 11 Pacific.
Get exclusive interviews from your favorite artists, all the hottest music, and updates on what we got going on in the world.
That's every Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m. on Seattle's Rainier Avenue Radio. Sediment cleanup of the lower Duwamish River has begun. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the members of the lower Duwamish Waterway Group, which includes King County, the City of Seattle, and Boeing, have begun sediment cleanup of the lower Duwamish Waterfall Superfund site. This important environmental project will address sediment pollution and help restore the health of the Duwamish River. Starting on the waterway's upper reach, construction activities extend from the South 102nd Street Bridge down straight to the Duwamish Waterway Park. Over the next 3 years, in-water activities will occur from October to February, ending in February 2027. Visit ldwg.org to learn about the Upper Reach cleanup and sign up for email updates.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Welcome back to WIAA Primetime on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, and Rainier Avenue Radio host Juan Cotto welcome you every Tuesday afternoon. And this is an opportunity for us to get together. Mick and I's schedules have been dynamic, to say the least, over the last several days. Hopefully I get a chance to see you in person. And I was just thinking to myself, hopefully we'll get a chance. Hopefully Kevin Martinez will allow us back into what is it now called? Safeco Field, or is it T-Mobile Park? Hopefully let us come into T-Mobile Park and allow us, my longtime friend who is now the president and CEO of the Seattle Mariners. Only took him 30 years to get that position, and it's exciting to have a long time. So it says that I am the first person that he met in Seattle. And boy, that was the good luck charm that he had to getting himself to that position. So we're excited to see baseball here in a couple of months. Mick, a number of my friends said, "Oh, you won't ask him about this," but I asked you about everything, and obviously the WIAA. And I understood it that this was a district type of situation, but there was a girls' basketball game recently. I think it was on January the 8th between the Garfield Bulldogs and West Seattle. Daniel Bellis and I have seen those two teams play, and we can talk about Megan Fiso and some of the great players that have had an opportunity to play in those games on both teams. At the end of the ball game, as the time was running out, there was a little bumping and pushing, some tough defense being played, even though the game was basically out of reach. And that ended up with starting an altercation between the two teams. That has been publicized by a number of newspaper outlets. There were some articles about this recently, and people have been pretty mum on the situation. And I'm wondering what you know about that situation, what you can share. And this is one of those things that goes into the behavior of our athletes, unfortunately. And how can we curb these types of activities from happening?
Yeah, no, I'm very aware of the situation. And I would say that, the WIAA is a member-driven organization. Our membership wants to have authority. Oregon is a very top down, so it's a very different model. So our handbook, right, which is readily available online, WIAA.com, that sets the minimum, that sets the floor of the penalty. And then the membership has the ability to enhance that to what they deem as appropriate. And we see that very often in situations where schools will enhance the penalty for their students, their coaches, or what have you, based on what they find in their investigation and what they want to do. So in this case, the minimum is a 1-game suspension. As far as parents coming on the floor, being physical with people, that's up to school districts. It was 2 schools from the same school district. So it's a school district issue. And the school district gets to decide if they want to enhance any of those minimum penalties for the students, which is a 1 game for an ejection.
I've been to a number of basketball games. I mean, and I know Daniel's back there because I know Daniel and I over the years, I can't even count how many games that we've gone to. I think I have forgotten more games than I can imagine. We have been in big gymnasiums. We've been in small gymnasiums. We have been in the championship games. We have been in games that are incredibly intense, that are just local rivalries. Franklin versus Garfield, for example. As we mentioned, Garfield versus West Seattle. And we think about the games here in the city, but there's also been games that we've covered with some of the Kingco teams. We know that the games can be intense, and we know that the fans and everyone seems to, for the most part, over the last several years, for the most part, the fans and the excitement of it, that's what really makes high school sports so special, the neighborhood rivalry, and so sometimes it's a district rivalry. And you touched on this earlier, and I don't want to overemphasize this conversation, but is the dynamic getting a little bit more tenuous, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been to a lot of games in the last 2 weeks, and close games. I tried to pick, big games, rivalry games. I like going out watching. I mean, I love being a fan. And I was at Garfield Rainier Beach last Monday. I was down at Lincoln of Tacoma Silas on Wednesday. I was up at Tulalip Lummi Nation the week before. And so I've watched some I was at Tahola and Costa, boys and girls games on those nights, and phenomenal competition. I mean, the game down Tacoma on Wednesday, literally a last second 3 in overtime and a foul, and the kid hits the free throw, 1-point game. They walked 2 fans out, right, of the game, where they stopped the game, moved fans out. Really good crowd control. When I was at the Beach Garfield game, fans were intense. I heard nothing inappropriate come out of the stands. Coaches were modeling good behavior. And when I watched that video, the coaches involved were modeling good behavior, right? They were doing that. What's scary is when people start coming out of the stands. The students are going to learn from that. They're kids. They're emotional. There's a significant injury to one of the students, right? I mean, that's scary stuff. We can't have that. But what we really cannot have are parents coming out of the stands, fans coming out of the stands. Because now that's going to escalate. And if you saw the video, it escalated very quickly, and it continued. We're very fortunate that the other adults that were out there were helping intervene and not escalating that incident. But we can't have people coming out on the floor. The officials and the coaches can handle that. When you start having people come out, and that's, our rules are very clear. The schools are responsible for their crowd control. And then in turn, they need to deal with the consequences of that. And they need to be the ones setting the tone of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And when people cross that line, they have to be held accountable. And so, so that's scary, that of what could have happened. I mean, it was bad enough what happened, people going to the hospital. But what could have happened, what could have been a lot worse. And we can't have our response to that be based on, it didn't happen. We got to be, what did happen, what could happen, to prevent a future incident.
And I have to ask this because I guess pseudo I'm technically a member of the media, I did address this at my own alma mater many years ago when there was an investigation going on with one of the media outlets, and they chose not to answer. And at times, I feel not to answer really shines a very, very interesting light on things. Given the amount of time, and here's the Seattle Times, and they write their article, and there's been a number of touch points where they've tried to reach in and get comments, and everyone is mum. I read the article in the paper, and I was sharing it with my wife Sarah. Is there an appropriate time where someone can comment on this?
I would think so. I mean, once you're done doing your investigation, you've made your decisions, and any appeals or, sometimes there's things going on internally. We deal with this a lot. People want to know everything that's going on. A lot of times things are in process where we can't answer either, right? It's like any other entity. In today's world, everybody expects the information right now. So I'm not sure where all they're at with their full internal process. That part I don't know. I know that there's been a lot of activity based on it, based on some questions we've gotten. And, we're waiting to get that final outcome as well. Our process is the league addresses it first, which would be the Metro. Then it goes to the Sea King. They take a look at it, and then it comes to our executive board for review based on the investigation by the schools involved and the decision for any types of consequences or penalties. And so, our board won't be involved with that until late March at our next board meeting. So we'll know more by then. So it's a long ways off. And at this point, if they got to play again in the league or district tournament, hopefully there's a plan in place. If they're going to be playing one of our tournaments, we'll definitely have a plan in place. So, those kind of emotions don't go away, especially when kids are involved. So, and adults are involved with kids. So, I think there's a lot more to be said for that and reviewed. We're really early in the process.
Mick, I had the honor of being the speaker at Kennedy High School on Martin Luther King Day. And as I shared with the students over there, and I've received a number of letters. It's been wonderful getting the cards and letters from Kennedy High School. Very, very special to me. Even always nice to get thanked, but they've been incredible. And I had an opportunity to tour the school a little bit. It was a school that I wanted to go to, and I let the kids know that. But my mom had other plans, and then put me in a Catholic high school downtown, which I still have a very, very close affiliation. Mick, the Kennedy High School gymnasium and their football operation and so forth. It's some high tech stuff, and they've got all these kind of computer monitors in the weight room, and I was like, man, that's really cool. And then I was at Rainier Beach a couple of years ago helping out Coach Corey Sampson, and they have an old school weight room. Obviously, Rainier Beach is getting redone. We'll see how that goes, but we spoke about this earlier in regards to I don't want to say the haves versus the have-nots. There's weight training. There's some weights in there. There's iron. You move it, you get stronger. No excuses. But it seems like in today's day and age, some of these schools with the advantages in technology are going to have the advantages with the players. It seems a little bit more of a dynamic thing to participate in, and I was wondering, how do we balance out some of those inequalities, or if those are called inequalities? How do we balance that out between schools who have this technology and things that they're using to prepare athletes and those that don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be when you talk about what's happening in the next 5 or 10 years, I see that as a definite potential challenge. And we don't really have an answer for that other than what's allowed in the in-game part, right, where the coaching and the preparation really are there. And so, there's a lot of what I would consider well-to-do schools that don't necessarily perform very well on a regular basis. So, but also we know, people who have the means to have access to tools. I mean, just simply a kid being able to go home and log on the internet and get on their VidSwap or one of their coaching tool items and be able to review information from coach, plays and highlights and teaching points. So schools have to overcome that who don't have it to provide it within their own school. And if communities are not supporting their schools through their levies, that makes it even harder, our booster club. So yeah, I think there's a chance with how fast technology is developing, and how much more we're seeing it. We're starting to see it on the sidelines now during contests, in that where it's allowed, that I think there could be a little bit of an arms race with that in the near future. Hopefully our rules making body will address some of that. But as far as the out of season and that kind of work, it's going to be really difficult to try to, but I think it just amplifies what we've already known for years. We've, schools that can pay to take their kids to camp, or bring in special trainers, or provide, different nutrition or some things. We've been seeing this for years, and some schools overcome that despite their financial constraints, and some schools can't. Some schools have every opportunity in the world and they can't get it done. So I don't think it's really new. I think it just amplifies it.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I'm Juan Cotto, a host on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And this is WIAA Primetime, our Tuesday afternoon conversation covering the challenges and the opportunities in sports throughout the state of Washington in the high school ranks. We also want to give a very, very special invitation to you during the month of February at what was known as the Columbia City Theater. It is now the headquarters for Rainier Avenue Radio, but it is going to be the Call to Conscience Black History Month Museum. Started on February 1st. It's going to run all the way to the 28th, all 28 days. Leap year was last year. But this is an opportunity to learn about the history of the Black community in the city of Seattle. We still feel it's important here at Rainier Avenue Radio to examine the history of this evolving community, share some of the issues that happened during the past. And Tony B. has put together, as usual, a fascinating and really introspective look at the Black community here in Seattle, and we just think it's worth your while. Down where we are located at 4916 Rainier Avenue South, there are restaurants, and if you haven't been down on Rainier Avenue in a while, it really has changed. I think you'll really enjoy it. But this is something that your family, your children, and people would really enjoy doing. So we're here at our Rainier Avenue Radio.world website. You can pick up tickets to this event, but come by, take a look. I think you'll really enjoy it, and we hope that you will spend some time learning about the evolution of the Black community in the city of Seattle. The question now, Mick, is, and having had these positive conversations that we've just had over the last several minutes, Mick, the most important position in any game is officials. And we need to have good people who want to serve as arbiters for these games, making sure that our kids who are putting the time in all throughout the state of Washington, where they're playing their games, they have someone who can come in and ref it. My wife who was also an athlete, she ran cross country and certainly enjoys all of these sports and plays a role with the development of our kids, and we both attend their games, whether it's volleyball, football, basketball, whatever they're playing. And we're always glad that there are adults there that are handling the situation by being officials. But sometimes we wonder, Mick, who would want to do that job. And we know that it as much value that it brings to the community, and as awesome as our officials are, sometimes there can be some challenging situations that they end up facing. And we were referencing in the basketball game a few minutes ago, and other activities, and to hear some of the, I don't know what other word or adjective to use, but to use the abuse that sometimes that they get. What can we do to make sure that we are getting people to referee these games? Because we know that there has been a shortage over time. What can we do to get people to respect the value that they bring? And what can we do to make this a desired opportunity that people are going to want to pursue in the future?
I think it's like anything, we got to show some love, appreciation for people. We have people who come out and do this. They're district court judges, they're law enforcement, they're working in a warehouse. And there's all kinds of people who come out to do these, and none of them are doing it for a living. It's not a career. Some of them, the young ones who are really good, they move through so fast, get to college. And we have some people who, I mean, you watch, there's a white hat in the NFL that worked at a small private Seattle high school, right? Was principal. So there are people who do this and work it, but for the most part, they're guys like you and me. And the reason they do it is they love sports, right? They have a sense of like they want to give back. They love being on a team, which it gives them something, and they love the adrenaline rush of a close game and being out there. And I can tell you that I've been doing this now several years. I'm old, and in my 35 years in high school sports, I've never come across somebody who I think gets up every single morning and says, I want to screw over a team or a kid.
Right.
Like they may get mad at somebody and hurt them with a couple of calls because something's happened that's personal, but they don't get up every single day saying, I'm doing this because I want to, skew the rules or do that. That's not the people that come out. And if people do come out for that originally, they don't make it through very long. I mean, if there are people out there for the wrong reasons, they don't last. Our Fish Association does a really, really good job of preparing people to go out there. So, I mean, our coaches are first and foremost in our schools are the lead with that of showing how much they appreciate. Make sure, somebody's there to meet them, get in on off the floor of the court, have a place to change. I mean, just the little things that we do for any guests at our house or places of work. So, and then give them a break. I mean, that's hard. I would love, I just wish there was a way, and maybe with technology and VR, when we get an obnoxious fan, we take them out in the hallway, and instead of slapping them upside the head, we slap a VR on them and tell them, here, we're going to run you through 10 minutes of this, and you're going to be running, you're going to be moving, you got to make the call and give them a score and let them see how incredibly hard it is to officiate. And I think that's why you see a lot of coaches start to give some space and grace, because when they're officiating their own little weekend tournaments or their own scrimmages in their practice and their players are yelling at them, like it kind of resonates a little bit over time. But yeah, we just have to take care of the people who are willing to give us their time, because without them, right, it's just PE, and nobody's showing up to watch PE every day.
Well, the other thing too is how good they are. It's amazing. I'll sit at I'll go to a couple of the games, especially basketball, because the proximity of the court is so close. But you'll hear some shorebirds yelling, "Oh, this guy isn't very good, and he's missing." Mick, they don't miss many calls. I mean, they're well above 96%.
Especially at the varsity level, because they don't get to those contests if they're not quality. And the other thing is, the reality is sometimes they're just going to have a bad night. Like players have a bad night, coaches have a bad night. Sometimes they're going to have a bad night. And what you'll find is they try to stay out of the way. They recognize when they're having a bad night. They try to rally and stay out of the way, but they're human beings. They're going to make mistakes. But the people who do it, they just love being out there and being part of a team too. And they don't want to be the ones that decide the game, right? Best officials are the ones you didn't even know were there. And that's, they take in the level of professionalism as a coach and AD compared to what I get to see on this side. It's very impressive how much work and time people put in to keep getting better. Even the really good officials, they're working at this on a regular basis.
Well, and when I think, especially in the sport of basketball, but I went to a volleyball game recently, and I also think this is the case. The speed of all of sports has picked up tremendously. And, you go to a girls' basketball game, it's not the old, make the basket and you have three girls on each side of the line. I mean, the girls' game and the speed of I want to say the speed of the young women's game has picked up. Obviously, we have some amazing athletes. I mean, you're certainly going to see a Division I athlete every night at a Metro League basketball game. And in a couple of instances, you may see a player that's going to be playing in the NBA. the speed of the boys' game has just gone up tremendously. I went to a volleyball game and I could barely follow it. I mean, the ball is just exploding off the hands of young women, and they're so athletic, and they're getting the balls, and the ball is missing the line by fractions. You have to be completely on top of it. These sports, because of the complexity and the talent of the athletes, is also getting more difficult, in my opinion, to officiate.
Oh, absolutely. Just the size and speed of the athletes. The Silas Lincoln game I went to last week, the girls' game, the shooting was incredible. I could not believe they had 43 points, I think 44 points it was like 44-32, and it was almost all threes. And I'm talking pull-up threes on the break. And so, yeah, the skill level and the sheer size and speed of today's athletes, I mean, it's impressive. And so trying to manage that as an official, good luck, right? And so, we're very fortunate to have the officials that we have.
2 questions for you, and we have about 2 minutes, so 60 seconds on each. Coach recruitment obviously is an important part of what the schools have to do individually. What can we do, and what is the WIAA doing to support the coaches to make sure that they're getting not only the training for the athletes and the strategic matters, which it seems like every coach seems to do okay by, but what can we do to support coaches and make sure they're getting an opportunity to work and to provide a solid program at their schools?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I think that can happen is parents got to give them a break as well. So coaches are trying to work 12 months a year for a $3,000 stipend. And then parents coming at them, threatening to sue them and all that. So what do we do when parents try to loop us into that issue? Like, we're going to answer the parents' questions, honestly, and then we're going to share that information with the schools so the schools can address it locally and take care of whatever the issue is. If the parents are right, great, that they can take care of it. If the parents are wrong, then they can answer to their coaches. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we can't, for our selfish wants and needs and out of love of our kids, we can't annihilate coaches who are willing to give us their time.
Mick, please highlight any recent programs or pilot programs or innovation that have been introduced to really improve and enhance the student athlete experience.
Well, I think what we're doing at our state tournaments is one thing we've really tried to step up the appearance of those things and highlighting them on social media. We just had a social media post of a young man. He was won the Grammy Award. He's up for best new artist. He didn't win it, but he took 6th place in swimming. And so we went into the archives and dug that up. And so we're really trying to highlight students and what they do. Kids like to be seen, right? And, they should be proud of things that they accomplish, and they don't have to win state championships to get it. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things. We're really trying to make our events. And so I think that's why our attendance is up, keeping people connected, but also taking care of them and putting them in nice venues. And I would challenge anybody in the country for the venues that our kids get to participate in once they make state tournaments.
Mick, thank you very much, as usual, for your time. We know you are busy. We know you go all over the state in that little black Ford of yours, and get out and see the coaches, see the administrators. Most importantly, see the kids, and that is so commendable. Thank you for all you do, and thanks for all your staff does at WIAA headquarters in Renton. Once again, this is Juan Cotto, a host here at Rainier Avenue Radio. We encourage you to come swing by Black History Month at the Call to Conscience Black History Month Museum, February 1st, February 28th. Go to RainierAvenueRadio.world, pick up some tickets, and please take your family out to see a wonderful exhibit that will touch your mind, your heart, and your spirit. Once again, WIAA Primetime signing off, and we'll see you soon. And hey, we'll probably see you at a gymnasium or an event this week, knowing Mick Hoffman and I. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, Juan. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel. Always a blessing.